Every single person in a company, whether you're the CEO or a brand new hire, you are on a journey. And for the business, that journey is like a massive high stakes puzzle. So today, we're going to try and unlock that puzzle. We're going to look at how companies find, grow, and hopefully convince their best people to stick around. All right, let's just jump right in with a big question for you. Think about it. What is a company's single most unpredictable and expensive asset? It's not the fancy building. It's not the stuff in the warehouse. It's the people. They're the lifeblood, right? The engine behind every single thing a company does. But here's the thing. They're also where things get really tricky and really expensive, especially when they decide it's time to just up and leave. And that gets us to the heart of the problem we're exploring today, employee turnover. And look, this is way more than just a boring number on some HR spreadsheet. It's a huge and often hidden cost in both real money and lost brainpower. If you really want to tackle it, you've got to understand the entire employee journey, from the very beginning to the very end.
So where does this whole journey kick off? Well, it all starts with part one, finding the right fit. This is all about getting the right people in the door in the first place. Okay, so right off the bat, there's a difference that a surprising number of companies actually get wrong. And that's recruitment versus selection. Recruitment, that's like casting a giant fishing net. You're trying to attract a whole pool of good candidates. But selection, now that's the really hard part. That's about picking the one right fish out of that net. And honestly, if you mess up the selection part, it doesn't matter how great your recruitment was. A lot of people think hiring is just about throwing a job ad up online. But the way it's supposed to work is way more methodical. It's all got to start with something called job analysis. I mean, really digging in and figuring out what this job actually is before you do anything else. Only then do you recruit, select, and finally place someone. It's a chain, and every single link matters. All right, so you've hired your star candidate. Job done, right? The journey's over. Nope, not even close. In fact, what comes next is maybe even more important. This is the part that decides if they're going to thrive or if they're just going to become another statistic. We're talking about orientation, or what's sometimes called induction. Yeah, it's about the welcome packet and the paperwork, but its real job is so much deeper. A good orientation, it's all about calming those first-day jitters, setting clear expectations from the get-go, and just making someone feel like, okay, I made the right choice. Get that right, and you can slash that early turnover rate. And that support can't just stop after the first week. The smartest companies know that training isn't a one-off event. It's a cycle. You can see it here. First, you figure out what people actually need to learn. Then you plan and deliver the training. And here's the step a lot of places skip. You have to evaluate it. Did it actually work? It's this constant loop designed to make people better and better over time. Okay, so we've found the right person, we've set them up for success. Now, we get to the real core of it all, the day in, day out stuff. What actually keeps people motivated and showing up ready to do great work? When we hear the word rewards, most of us immediately think about money, right? And sure, that's part of it. Those are the transactional rewards, your salary, your benefits, the stuff you can count. But what's becoming more and more important are the relational rewards. These are the intangibles. Feeling like you're learning something new, seeing a future for yourself at the company, just feeling like your work actually matters. That stuff is huge. And this is where it gets really strategic. A smart company doesn't just throw perks at people. Look at this flow here. It all starts with the big picture business strategy. That strategy should drive everything else, including how people are rewarded. So your base pay, your bonuses, even things like a simple thank you, it's all supposed to be part of one big, cohesive, total reward package. It's all connected. Which brings us to the moment of truth, the big decision point in this whole journey. Why do people stay, or why do they walk out the door? Everything we've talked about so far leads right here. So what makes someone happy in their job? Well, it's not just one thing, it's a whole mix. Of course, the work itself needs to be interesting, and the pay has to feel fair. You need to feel like you can move up, but look at the other stuff here. Your boss, your coworkers, how you get along with them is a massive piece of the puzzle. It really is a combination of what you do, what you earn, and who you do it with. And it's pretty simple, right? Happy employees are way more likely to stick around. Job satisfaction is a huge piece of retention. So for a company, it's all about pulling the right levers. Things like fair pay, a good boss, a real chance to grow,
And maybe more than ever, a decent work-life balance. These are the things that make a great employee decide, yeah, I'm staying here.
But what about the flip side? What happens when people are checked out? Well, you get absenteeism, which is often the first warning sign before someone quits. And the cost of that is just, wow. You've got the obvious direct costs, like having to pay someone to cover for them. But the indirect costs are what really kill you. Productivity tanks. Everything slows down. Customers get annoyed, and managers are stuck putting out fires instead of leading. It's a massive, massive drain. All right, as we start to pull all these threads together, there's one last, really powerful idea that kind of sits underneath everything we've discussed. It's the foundation of the whole employer-employee relationship.
It's called the psychological contract. And no, this is not something you sign on your first day. It's the unwritten rules. It's the set of expectations that both you and your employer have about each other. It's all built on trust. And when one side feels like that trust has been broken, that's when the whole thing can just crumble. So here's what that looks like in practice. It's a trade-off. The company side of the bargain is to provide things like good pay, some flexibility, and a real path for you to grow. And your side of the bargain? Well, you're expected to keep your skills sharp, stick around for a while, and, go the extra mile when the team needs it. It really is a two-way street. And that really brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? This quote just nails it. Retention starts up front. It's not something you worry about a year down the line. It's the result of getting every single step of this journey right. You can't have a great culture if you hire the wrong people, and you can't keep great people if you don't reward them properly. It's all one interconnected system.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. In a world that's constantly changing with remote work, AI, and all the rest, what does that psychological contract look like in the future? What's the new deal between companies and their people? That's the next big puzzle for all of us to figure out.